Fantasy, is that the kind of genre you would?
Yeah, so the Dead Adrenaline series is kind of like a genre fusion. It has science fiction, horror, action, adventure, and fantasy. Now, it has enough for every person who likes to read all those genres. There's enough in each book. Like, so if you're not into science fiction as much, there'll be enough of horror in there that you'll be like, okay, I can get past the science fiction because it's interesting enough, but it's not my thing.
Yeah.
And it holds your attention.
Smart.
So the first two books are heavy with the science fiction and horror. And the third in the series, Dead Adrenaline 3, it really captures the fantasy on a high level.
Now, I remember from reading your prior works, there's Beaver County references.
Absolutely. The first book, we have Rosalind's Candy Castle, real businesses. And I got permission from the business owners to have a photograph taken of their logo. In fact, Rosalind Candy Castle, the sign they have up now, the new one with the candy, is, the old one was up when I took the picture, so it made it more nostalgic, which the hero in this book loves nostalgia, so it kind of tied in with the story. Have the Jerry Ree Records recording studio, that old wooden sign, I have that in there. It's Music Garden now with Al Torrance, the owner, right? You know Al. I've heard you talk about him on the radio. He was real open to it, and he let me take a photograph of it, and I put that in the book. What's interesting enough, in this book, this guy references movies, he talks about businesses, he talks about, the hero talks about all these different things, and he mentions it's like a creep show out here. and you think, well, how does that tie in the story? Well, in Jerry Ree recording studios, or record studios, they recorded the soundtrack for Creep Show.
I see.
Correct?
Yes, good
right?
job.
The 1982 movie Creep Show. And I think it was 30 years later, they found the original soundtrack in the attic of that building.
No kidding.
They recovered it, and they had the originals. But it's kind of interesting. This guy goes back to old things. He talks about different businesses. In the second book, we talk about the coffee beanery in Center Township. We throw in these businesses, and he's like, man, I wouldn't mind a big cup of coffee right now during the zombie Dead Adrenaline apocalypse. So, yeah, this book nails all the areas that people would know and would love, and they're good places to go. I would recommend them, absolutely. And you can't go wrong with a Dead Adrenaline. If you're gonna have a chocolate covered strawberry from Rosalind Candy Castle, there's nothing better during the Dead Adrenaline apocalypse.
Well spoken, yeah.
Yes. So he makes references to that in the book.
Caffeinated zombies, though, I'd be worried about that.
Yeah, you got to watch. They're human, but they're not.
One of the ones I remember from the illustration looked a lot like our friend Eddie Crow.
Yes, he appeared in the second book. His likeness, he gave permission to it. Not to spoil it, but he has a really good ending that happens to him in the second book. It's interesting. He's a fighter, though. I'll give him that. He didn't go down without a fight, or maybe he did go down. I don't know. But either way, yeah, he's in it. He's in it. The radio is in it. The radio station, the Beaver County Radio. So actually, the second book, the final battle that builds up at the very end of Time Break Expedition, The Return, Dead Adrenaline 2. And obviously the first book, Dead Adrenaline, One Man's Journey to Survive Beaver County. In the second book, the final battle ends in the parking lot out in front of the Beaver County radio station. And it's in fact, people that read the book were upset because the ending is something like you've never seen before, and it leaves you wanting so much more by the end of that page on that book that you can't wait for the third book to come out.
You had to do a third book. Yeah.
Had to. In these books, just to give you a little background on them, there are 3 books. Read it as one.
I'm going to hold one up on my camera here to let people see it. Okay.
So you have the first one, the second one, and the third one, but it's like one big book. But I had to break them down into 3 different things, kind of like the Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi.
That worked out well for them.
Yeah, interesting enough, in Dead Adrenaline 3, which would be Return of the Jedi, I actually went with the second book. I put the Return instead of the Revenge, because obviously the man called Clint, who's the hero in this book, would not be vengeful, just like in Return of the Jedi. So these books, like I said, it's a genre fusion, and if you're into science fiction and you like time travel, so there's time travel in these books. There's 2 years in the first book, 2026, which is what we live in right now. When I wrote the book, it was 2023. So you have this time travel element in there, and then there's 2086, another year that's in the book. So those 2 years bounce back and forth. And it's so good how they mesh and how the past helps the future and the future helps the past. And then these people that are in each one of those years are living in the present, trying to survive. And the story starts off with the man called Clint. He wakes up one day, Incidentally, he's a law enforcement officer, which myself, so he's loosely based on me, loosely.
Yeah, tell your background.
So my background is I've been a Pennsylvania State Trooper for, it's over 24 years. In 10 months, I'm retiring from the Pennsylvania State Police. And I was a local for 7 before that, so I'm kind of like ready to go. I'm kind of expiring on the shelf, kind of like the hero talks about how he's expiring on the shelf. He doesn't want any more action in his life, but unfortunately in these books, the action gets heavy for him. But for me, in 10 months, I'm out. I'll move on. I'll write more books. I'll focus on other things. I run a karate school down on the main street of Monaca, Pennsylvania, One Strike Karate, Brendo Shotokan School. So I do that. Incidentally, martial arts are in these books. So when people are reading these chapters where there's fight scenes and carnage and blood and people are suffering on a high level, you see the fight, you read about it, and you say, wow, that's actually techniques that could work. If you know anything about fighting, you'll enjoy it. If you don't know anything about it, it's explained in detail where you'll understand. There's a lot of Japanese terms in there that I throw in there, but then I explain it with English, you know. So, yeah, it's cool. But
what makes Clint the character? What motivates him? What's putting him in this role of protagonist and hero?
So he's one of these heroes, like you always hear about heroes that have a set of fighting skills, which he has. He's one of these heroes that, you know, loves his family, he loves God, but he also loves nostalgia. And he loves things from the past, and he loves humor. In the midst of a violent carnage going on, somebody loses a set of eyes, per se, and somebody steps on them as they're running to survive, accidentally, right? He looks at things with humor. He's always cracking jokes. He has this term that he calls some of the dead adrenalines. He calls them DAs. That's his nickname for them, but he calls them dillweeds. He's like, wow, what a dillweed. Yeah. That's what he says throughout the book. And if you look at the very last page on each one of my books, I have, don't be a dillweed. But his motivation is his will. But this infection that engulfs Beaver County, that's ground zero. So everything happens in Beaver County. In the first 2 books, it's heavy. In the 3rd book, we go into different time areas, different years. 1634 Japan, the 15th century, Knights of the Round Table, all that fascinating, cool stuff. It's a retelling of King Arthur. If you like witches, dragons, you like all that stuff, you're gonna get your fantasy cup filled, your goblet, if we could say it the right way. It's gonna be filled to the top.
Well, how do we kill these zombies? If they're what's the trick?
That is interesting. In fact, I'm glad you brought that up, Scott, because what I would like to do is give away a set of these books.
Oh yeah,
the Jet Adrenaline 1, 2, and 3. And by the way, they're available on Amazon. And the first 2 are available at the Little Green Bookstore in Zillionople.
Is that on the main drag? On
yeah,
Route
on the
18?
main drag, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm trying to I'll get the 3rd one there eventually. You can get them on platforms on Barnes & Noble too, like if you want to order it online. There's all these different other retailers that sell books like Book A Million. Like if you search Dead Adrenaline, it'll pop up a variety of places. The main place is Amazon though. So there's 3 ways you can kill a dead adrenaline. Zombie infection, entity, there's a high science fiction element to this. So don't think of your typical zombie, Scott.
Okay.
I know we look around Beaver County, sometimes we see typical zombies. Well, these aren't typical zombies. These are something that's on a higher level, maybe from a different world. And it's kind of a mystery. The man called Clint tries to discover what it is. But there is 3 ways to take these out. But before I get into that, I'm going to tell you the 3 ways that you could die from them.
Oh.
And what I would like the listening audience, if there's any listeners, hopefully there is, if somebody could call in the radio station and name the 3 ways, and they'll get this set of books here, these 3 books. There'll be that's signed autograph by me. What that'll do for you, it won't improve the reading, but at least you have a signature, right?
You even got them wrapped up and everything.
Yeah. So this
gift.
is hydroponic sealed.
Oh.
So it's waterproof, it's mold proof. It's actually just a comic book plastic cover.
Survive the apocalypse.
Yes, exactly, because you want to keep these guys in mint condition. So 3 ways you can die from a dead adrenaline, zombie, infection. 1, they just eat you for dinner. They like to munch on you. They're hungry. If you see one with a set of red eyes, look out. They're really hungry. If they're blue and red, that means they had a meal, but they'll still eat you. They move a little slower. But when they're red-eyed, they're coming there to have a feast.
Ooh.
And humans are the prey. Now, the second way is you get away. Maybe you have skills. Maybe you get lucky. Maybe you're able to lock yourself in a building and survive. They bite you, but you get away. About 2 weeks later, you're going to die of a blood-borne disease. The infection will take over, and you'll just kick over. Now, the third way is probably the most horrible way to go. Like, I'm thinking, well, somebody snacking on me isn't a good way to go.
Right.
Right? Catching some disease is not a good way to go. But the third way is horrible because they try to take over your body and mind. And they retain all your memories, all your skill set, and they attach themselves to you. You're a human host. This entity attaches to you. And once it attaches to you, it takes you over and you become one of these dead adrenaline zombie alien creatures. Now, that's probably the worst way to go. So if you think about it, simple way to remember it, listening audience, dinner, bloodborne disease controls you.
Okay.
Right? Kind of like a bad date.
You
Right?
said it.
Exactly. So
Yeah, phone line's open, 724-843-1888. I'll remind you that a couple more times, but all right.
yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much that. Now, how you kill one of these, it's interesting. So like in you've seen, this is, like I said, a different take on that genre, zombie, but the science fiction end is in there so heavy. So they don't die like, you shoot them in the brain, right?
That's
So
what the George Romero movies
Yeah,
often.
the George Romero movies, absolutely, yeah. You think like, okay. Yeah, incidentally, he directed Creepshow.
Right.
George Romero, right? Yeah. So on the flip side of that, so this hero encounters the first ever dead adrenaline. He's on his way to work. He gets up. He doesn't really want to go to work. He wants to sleep in, take it easy. His parents are still living in Beaver County. So he said, I got to check on my parents. His family went on a little mini vacation. He's supposed to meet up with them in a day or two. So he has like one day of work and he's ready to vacation day. Well, he's on his way to work and he notices there's no cars in front, no cars in back. He's thinking, what's going on here? There's nobody on the road. It's a good day to get to work. Nobody's driving slow. Sunday morning drivers. I'm not using profanity and recording myself and saying I was right. You know what I mean? Like none of that. So you're thinking, okay. All of a sudden he comes across a car that's roadside, and he walks up and he sees the floorboards filled with blood and the windshield is shattered from the inside out. And he's like, what's going on here? He looks in the woods. He sees a blood trail leading to the woods. Well, he's in law enforcement, but in the year 2026, they're not allowed to have guns. They've been banned by the government. So, and any time they get something that they could use to defend themselves, they get this thing which actually freezes a person in motion, but they only get it when they go to work and they sign it out. So it's sort of futuristic on that end of it. So he's walking into the woods and he's thinking, what's going on? All of a sudden he sees this blood shadow drop from the trees. He looks, it looks human, but it doesn't. And it's breathing heavy. And down below he sees a dead human just laying there. It looked like it was feasted on. All of a sudden this thing comes towards him. The battle ensues. He's using skills. He talks about his past training in his mind. He starts throwing humor in there during a bad carnage situation. And he ends up taking this thing out by cracking its head off a rock. And it's dead. And he's thinking, wow, that's how you kill him. Wow, that's like a zombie. You kill him like a zombie. He's driving away. Well, through the story, he comes to find out not every one of these dead adrenalines have the same kill spot. So he calls them kill shots. You might die from a hit to the head. I might die from a hit to the pinky.
Oh, wow.
Because that's where the entity is lying and holding on to the host. It picks a spot in the body.
Okay.
Yeah. So it starts to have that dynamic. So it's like you got to have some set of skills to find that spot before they eat you, bite you, or take your body over. And they want him. And here's, incidentally, these dead adrenalines want you, Scott. You're a strong-willed guy, right?
Usually, yeah.
Usually, right? So they would want somebody like you because your body would retain them for a long time and not break down and collapse. The weak-souled people to give up, boom, and it takes them over. They collapse and they have to move and find another host. They want that strong-willed guy, but in the same token, it's hard to take that person over because he's not letting them.
There's more work.
You're not getting in my mind. We're going to fight. We're going to defend ourselves. So this is kind of cool. The cover of this book. I don't know if you can see it from here, but do you recognize what that is?
Yeah, you can hold up. It looks like it's not the shell plan, is it?
Yes, you're 100% right. You're one of the first people to guess that, I guess. So it has a futuristic flair to it, right? So that photograph, this is photographs I took.
When did you write that? What year did that?
This was 2023.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's the shell plant or the cracker plant or the fracking plant, wherever you want to call it. At night, it's the city of lights. You drive past the Vanport Bridge and you're like, wow, that glows like a futuristic. And I'm thinking, that would be a cool picture for a book. I try to catch it during the daylight hours. The cloud set was just right. It had a nice ominous overtone, so I hit it. Took the picture, got it, whatever. But here's the thing. This fracking plant has something to do with the infection that's happening in Beaver County. Okay. So you think about it. City of lights at night. During the day, it's a smokestack of death coming out of there. So then, think about this. We talk about time travel. We talk about past, present, and future. Go back to 1969. Ohio State trooper or highway patrolman was in pursuit of a UFO. I've heard you talk about this.
Oh, I love that
Yeah.
case.
Yeah, it's a factual documented case.
From
Now,
Ravenna,
whether you-
Ohio to Conway, Pennsylvania, there was like a 40-mile chase with 3 different law enforcement agents.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. 40-mile chase, 3 different law enforcement. It entered Beaver County at
Right.
one point. So if you take that element of a UFO sighting by law enforcement and a light in the sky, the light in the sky disappears, where does it go? What happens? That ties into why this dead adrenaline infection is occurring.
Ah.
Mix it in with the fracking plant, and boom, you have that mystery. And the guy, the hero, the man called Clint, discovers what this is through the book. If you read it, you'll discover what it is, and it'll blow your mind. You'll be like, I didn't see that coming. and then it makes you wonder, like, technology's great, but sometimes it can affect the outcome of our reality. And in this case, turned the dead adrenaline apocalypse loose on all the people in Beaver County. So our government decides to put borders around all of Beaver County in these books. And they don't know what the infection is. They don't want it out. They don't want anybody in. So if you're trapped in there, like the man called Clint is, you're stuck there. Because if you get within a certain 1-mile radius, they're going to take you out. Snipers are posted. They're ready to take you out. So you have no choice but to fight and find out what's causing this and try to stop it. And that's what he does in the first book. So the ending of the first book, it's sort of like Star Wars in a way, where you think, well, the humans sort of won, I guess. Like, hey, they're going to get an award. Well, not so much.
Darth Vader had other ideas.
Yeah, exactly. Empire Strikes Back, it sort of has that element where the ending of that book, in Time Break Expedition, The Return, Dead Adrenaline 2 is like Empire Strikes Back. It has that element where it looks like the Empire is working and winning and taking the game to the good people, and it's not a good outcome. And it all happens outside here in the lot. In fact, there's action that plays out in the book in this right here where we're recording. Yeah, we get to meet Eddie Crow in all his glory. So
He was very proud of that, by the way. He would hold out that picture of him, the illustration in the book, and he...
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. There was talk about bringing him back in the third book, but I think I let it go because I think just the way he went out was heroic to a certain extent, and I think it was Eddie Crowish, and I said, we're gonna leave it. We're gonna leave it. It just, not to say there couldn't be future books, but the way this third book ends, this is the third book and the final of the series. So when you see the ending of this, however, I'm always a guy that leaves things unsaid, so you might question the ending.
Talking to Clint Kurtyka about Dead Adrenaline 3. I wanted to ask you, and I hope I didn't cut you off there, I'm sorry, but I wanted to ask you a question. Why is it important to you to have local landmarks and local people? You could have said it in Narnia. You could have created some fictional place that, is only in your mind. You want to include Beaver County references. Why is that important to you?
So if you think about it, the Rust Belt, Western Pennsylvania, like I've talked about a little bit ago, all these strange phenomena that happen in Beaver County, things that happen, like, maybe not every citizen in Beaver County wants it to happen. Not everybody wanted probably the fracking plant to exist, but it exists, Some people probably believe in that UFO story. Some people think, oh, that's made up. There's always mysterious things, and I thought...
Shipping port,
right. That plays a part in this story, too, when you start to read it. But as far as, like, why did I pick Beaver County? Well, one, because of the landmarks, the businesses. I thought, wow, it would be cool to tie in these businesses. If I get these business owners to be on board to put their logo, their picture, or their sign, it's free advertisement, whether it gets them any more customers. I thought it was cool. It would actually be beneficial to me more than them. And I went around and I picked different places, and Vantage Chiropractor down in Beaver, he's in there, In fact, the hero talks about that, like, man, I wouldn't mind getting my back cracked after fighting all these dead adrenaline zombies. I'm wore out, right? So, yeah, these nostalgic landmarks. This guy is very nostalgic. He talks about Saturday morning cartoons. He's driving along 65. He looks to his left where the YMCA is now. He thinks about Fisher's Big Wheel.
Oh, yeah.
That used to be the best toy story in the land when I was a kid because they didn't have a whole lot of options. And, like, to me, that was like, I hit the gold pot of like, wow, this is the best place to go. So Beaver County just has that certain thing. If you think about Stephen King, when he wrote a lot of his books, it's always in one place.
Maine.
Yeah, Maine. Yeah, that's his. And I thought, this is cool. So my first 2 books, the majority of the book is Beaver County. You're going to know landmarks. You're going to see where he's traveling on 65. There's cool imagery in these books. My first book, mostly photographs, just about. I drew a few things. It wasn't Picasso, it was Kurtyka. I tried my best. But So there's cool Vanport bridges in there, but it doesn't look like it looks now. It's kind of cool. I did a little bit of photoshopping and made it look really neat. Like you'll look at it and you'll be like, oh, that is Vanport Bridge. So he talks about that. There's heavy movie references in this book. So if you're talking about Terminator, Aliens, just different things, songs. He likes music. He talks. You're a big music guy. I know that for a fact. You're knowledgeable more than anybody I know. Listening to you talk about music, but he talks about music, and you think about this. He puts all these elements together. This guy is sort of childlike in a way because he's always thinking about his childhood. He's thinking about past things. But in the middle of that, he's taking a zombie's head off with a wheel kick. You know what I mean? Like, you got to love that, Yeah. And he meets up with other characters in the book. There's a guy by the name of Irish Warrior. It's loosely based on a buddy of mine. I'm not going to say his name. He might not want me to, but who knows? But Irish Warrior, that's actually a nickname I gave him for real. So in real life. So he's like a technology wizard. Like, this guy knows technology. So when we talk about the science fiction end of it, he built this android, and this android helps the man called Clint in the battle against these dead adrenaline creatures. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, more and more we keep talking about in real life artificial intelligence, and there seems to be more talk about robots. Baseball is going to be using robot umpires in some cases. So that's one of the things that science fiction writers predicted 50, 60 years ago.
And then it's coming true. It's coming full circle. And these books have an evolution aspect to them. So if you think about, there's time travel in it. So if you think about an android that was created in the year 2026, and then you go to the year 2086, what if that same android was in the year 2086 but modified?
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So then maybe that android from 2086, which picks up with the second book, where the hero has to recollect his thoughts and he has to return to the year 2026 with a team. He calls them Berendo Shotokan warriors. Berendo means blended. So they're martial artists, but he has to train them. So there's an aspect in the book where he's training his team. They have to know how to kill these things, and he has to move forward through that. And it's kind of funny what he does to some of them to get them ready for the battle, the real deal. But he brings back that team, and he brings back that android, which is Cool Blue is the name of the android. And Cool Blue is Cool Blue 86. Well, in 2026, Cool Blue 26 exists. And those two robots meet. And the meeting is something to read. When they meet, you think, what's going to happen here? Is this going to be the Royal Rumble? Or are they going to just fight each other? But what they do is unique. It's probably something you've never read before.
And we will. Talking to Clint Kurtyka, local author, Dead Adrenaline. The third book is out now. We're going to do a quick commercial or two, do news. And one of the questions I want to ask you, when we talk about zombie films and books, there's always a allegory to something else. There's always, George Romero was talking about like societal concerns or issues. I wanted to ask you what's going on with Dead Adrenaline if we can. So
yes.
Hold tight. We'll be back. And remember, the phone line's open. You want to win free books. He's got the brand new one and the two before that. Just give us a call. But we had a trivia question. You have to know, again.
Dinner, bloodborne disease, it takes control of you. At least say those three, or just say it's a bad date. Simple.
Not that any of us know about that. Right? All right, hold on. Again, the number is 724-843-1888.
One of the greatest honors a person can receive is to be gathered with their people at the time of their passing. Even biblical authors, when they wanted to explain what it meant to have lived a great, prosperous, and meaningful life, spoke of the individual as having lived a long time and being gathered with friends and relatives near as they closed out their twilight years. Being gathered together with loved ones is something that the J&J Spratt Funeral Home takes very seriously as well. The comfort both given and received cannot be underestimated. J&J Spratt Funeral Home also knows that the honor shown to a loved one at their time of need in this manner is still the right thing to do today. J&J Spratt Funeral Home has been gathering together with area families for 4 generations and looks forward to honoring future residents deserving of being gathered together with friends and family. Click jjsprattfh.com.
Beaver County Transit Authority connects you to where you want to be. The doctor's office or well-deserved shopping spree will take you to wherever you please. Safe, no fuss, leave the driving to us. Hop on, adventures coming your way. Beaver County Transit Authority, BCTA. Ride the bus.
BCTA Connect, your ride to out-of-county destinations, is live now. You can book a trip as soon as today to destinations in Cranberry, Wexford, Warrendale, Boone, Sewickley, Leetsdale, and more with the BCTA Connect mobile app. For medical, employment, or any other trip need, BCTA connects you to out-of-county stops. Download the free app today.
Beaver County Transit Authority, BCTA. Ride the bus.
We have Art Cornell here from the Beaver Cemetery and Mausoleum. Art, what's new at the cemetery?
We've just completed a new addition to the mausoleum with above-ground burial crypts, indoor and outdoor niches, and family areas. The Beaver Mausoleum advantages include no plot maintenance, the convenience of a heated and air-conditioned building for visitation, and an adjoining private chapel. It's a perfect final resting place for your loved ones.
Thanks, Art. Beaver Cemetery and Mausoleum, serving all of Beaver County since 1865.
Looking for a fun, flexible job opportunity? McDonald's has it. Full and part-time positions available. Get premium pay for those premium hours of opening or closing, plus insurance, 401k, tuition assistance, and more. Choose to work anywhere from 3 to 8 hours. Apply now at mchire.com.
Getting involved with card games can be risky. Playing the wrong card can cost you dearly, and pretty soon you will find yourself broke and busted. This is Kalen from Freedom United Federal Credit Union, and I'm talking about the riskiest card game of all, using high-rate cards from other institutions and stores. If you've been shuffling your deck for too long, and the bluffing you're doing with your own finances is beginning to look like it's time to fold, visit Freedom United Federal Credit Union and get a new deal on a low fixed-rate Visa card. Through March 31st, get a low fixed 6.99% interest rate on all new Visa balance transfers with approved credit. Get back in the game. Put a little freedom in your future with the 6.99% Visa balance transfer. Special now available through the end of the month. Click freedomunitedfcu.com. Member NCUA Equal Housing Lender.
We belong to you.
Beaver County Radio's news source. 99.3 FM, 1230 WBVP, and beavercountyradio.com. Here's Noah Haswell.
Good morning on this Monday, March 2nd of 2026. We will have a complete Beaver County radio weather forecast after we take this look at news. Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has been killed in a major attack on Iran launched by Israel and the United States, throwing the future of the Islamic Republic into doubt and raising the risk of regional instability. Iranian state television and the state-run IRNA News announced the 86-year-old's death early yesterday. President Donald Trump had announced his death hours earlier, saying it gave Iranians their greatest chance to take back their country. The announcements came after a joint U.S. and Israeli aerial bombardment that targeted Iranian military and governmental sites. Trump said the heavy and pinpoint bombing was to continue through the week or longer. Sewickley Academy raised the WPIAL 2A Boys High School Basketball Trophy for the first time since 2018 on Friday after their 52-38 win over Jeanette at the Peterson Events Center in Pittsburgh to win its sixth title in program history. Junior forward Adam Ikamba and sophomore forward Mamadou Kane each scored 14 points. The Panthers will face the number 3 team out of District 10 at a site and time to be determined on Saturday, March 7th. A pickup truck crashed into a pole and a car dealership parking lot along a busy road in the Beachview neighborhood of Pittsburgh this morning. The road between Curran Hill and Pioneer Avenues in the Beachview and Brookline area of the Steel City is closed. The crash occurred near Cape May Avenue, and the cause of it is unknown at this time. It is unclear at this time if anyone was injured in the crash. Heavy backups were being reported in the South Hills, especially on Banksville Road, for the traffic headed toward I-376. U.S. Senators John Fetterman, Ron Wyden, Bill Cassidy, and U.S. Representatives Dan Goldman and Mike Lawler introduced their bipartisan, bicameral Enhanced Cybersecurity for SNAP Act on Thursday, which is meant to boost security of electronic supplemental nutrition assistance program, or SNAP benefit cards, during a sharp rise in theft by both hackers and scammers. Tens of millions of dollars in SNAP benefits have been stolen by criminals that are exploiting lax cybersecurity of electronic SNAP benefit cards. And federal prosecutors say they won't appeal a judge's ruling that bars them from seeking the death penalty against Luigi Mangione in the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. In a letter Friday, Deputy U.S. Attorney Sean Buckley told Judge Margaret Garnett that the government will not ask the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals to reverse her decision, clearing the way for a trial beginning in September. His state murder trial is set to start in June. Garnett last month dismissed a federal murder charge, murder through use of a firearm, that had enabled prosecutors to seek capital punishment, finding it legally flawed.
Here's the Beaver County forecast.
Today it'll be mostly cloudy, then gradually clearing. We'll see highs near 42. Tonight, look for increasing clouds with rain likely mainly after midnight. We'll drop down to a low around 32. And tomorrow we can expect to see rain throughout the day and into the evening with highs of 53 and lows of 45. I'm Lisa Marie with your Beaver County weather.
On this Monday, March the 2nd of 2026, at 37 minutes after 9, we've got a temperature of 25 degrees currently in Beaver County. That's a look at the news for now. I'm Noah Haswell on 99.3 FM, AM 1230 WBVP, 95.7 FM, and 1460 AM WMBA. Also streaming live around the world at beavercountyradio.com.
Also streaming now on Facebook as we have studio guest, local author Clint Kurtyka, the Dead Adrenaline 3 series. Noah, you a fan of sci-fi, horror?
No,
fantasy?
not really.
This book will make you a fan.
Yes. It has something for everybody. You'll like it now.
I'm going to read the tagline. Two unyielding forces about to meet by fate and destiny. The dragon realm is untouched by human breath.
Yes, the third book.
So when you're writing, Clint, and maybe loosely pattern after yourself, but if you're thinking cinematically, what film star would play him?
Well, I mean, the guy has martial arts skills. Jason Statham would probably be a good selection.
Ooh.
Yeah.
All right, I'm in.
Maybe give him a little more hair. Yeah.
You tell him that.
Yeah. Tom Cruise could probably pull it off if he was a little bit younger, but I think he could still. This guy's in his late 50s, so, I mean, the movie magic could make it happen, right?
Yeah.
Definitely somebody that has some background. He's in some of the bigger movies. Scott Adkins, that's a good martial artist there.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a variety of people, or I could play them myself.
There you go.
Yeah, throw me in there.
Yeah.
Incidentally, when you talk about cinematic, when people read these books, my goal was to make it a cinematic experience. So they feel like when they're reading it, like when you watch a really good movie, and then afterwards, maybe a day or two later, you're like, man, that was a really good scene in that movie. Well, that was a really good chapter in that book. And you feel like you visualize, you feel like you're in the book.
Yeah.
Like you visualize what you're reading to a point, which that's what most readers do, but this just pops out at you. It's a cinematic experience. And that's the goal that I wanted to do with that, because ultimately with these books, all three of them, I'm going to go back and I'm going to make them audiobooks.
Oh, good.
So I think that's a good idea to go, a direction to go. Dead Adrenaline, One Man's Journey to Survive Beaver County, Time Break Expedition, The Return, Dead Adrenaline 2, and Dead Adrenaline 3, but actually the name of the book is The Samurai Nidus Origin Chronicles, Dead Adrenaline 3. And I put the sword on the front of the book in Dead Adrenaline 3, but actually the first title was Samurai Nidus, The Origin Chronicles. And what does that mean? Well, in the first book, the man called Clint is the hero. In the second book, he is the hero. But you were introduced to his daughter named Chloe. And Chloe has something that happened to her that happened from past and the present and the future, and actually meets up with her dad, and she's changed. Well, in the third book, you get to dive right into the origin chronicles of how she became the Samurai Nidus. You know what's cool about that name, the Samurai Nidus? So, you always do your research. In fact, I source these books like I'm writing nonfiction, because I just don't want anybody coming back and saying, wait a minute, this is like any movie reference, I got to I have the sourcing there. Anything, and I stay away from lines in movies and stuff. You got to be careful with that. But so it was the final hours of finishing this book, and I don't know what came over me, and I said, because the original name was The Silver Samurai, and it's mentioned in the second book a little bit, because that's when that character is introduced. Well, I come to find out that that Marvel Comics had a villain named the Silver Samurai.
I didn't know that. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
I remember the comic book briefly, but it was like a graphic novel, I think, a comic book. And the Silver Samurai was an Asian guy, but it was based on science fiction, horror, action, adventure, fantasy. I'm thinking, that's too. They'll come out at you with their big lawyers, and you're going to lose that battle. So in the final hours, I said, well, I got to come up with a better name. And actually, I think the Samurai Knight blows it out of the water. So it was kind of cool, because then what I did in the third book is I had to write it in a way why that was mentioned in the first book. It was kind of like the dad gave the nickname Silver Samurai, but she had to tell him, my dad, my name's the Samurai Knight. So it's kind of cool. So,
and I see a dragon on the back cover as well. And any story with a dragon is automatically
Yes.
elevated, in my opinion.
So I always label these books science fiction, horror, action, adventure, and fantasy. Well, the first book, you know, if I'm going to be honest, it has more science fiction, and horror is heavy in it. The second book, the science fiction it's elevated to a higher octane level, and obviously there's horror in it and the action adventure, and you get little touches of fantasy in it. Third book, the fantasy leads it. And when you read this, if you're a fan of dragons, the dragon realm, the mysteries of dragons, you're going to be all about this book. If you're a fan of witches, you're going to be all about this book. If you're a fan of Knights of the Round Table, King Arthur himself, you know, you might not like what I do to the kingdom. You'd probably be upset with what happens to Camelot, and it's a retelling of the story. I mean, I pull in characters like Guinevere. You know, I pull in people that you would think, wow, King Arthur. I have an origin on how he became King Arthur in there. It's a retelling of it. So, but it all ties into the story, and it's all a test for this girl named Chloe, which is the man called Clint's daughter. And that test, when you see what she's put through to become the Samurai Knightess, it'll blow your mind. Like, I don't think anybody's wrote it like that before. Because ultimately, these three books, my goal is to make them into an audio book. I'm going to write other books. I have other books in the oven. But I would love for these to be made into a movie.
Yeah.
I'm going to push that. I'm going to try to anyway. Netflix series, every chapter could be an episode. 100% would work. It would be cool if we could get it filmed in Beaver County, because all the landmarks are there. Every fight scene, they might want to rent out the Beaver County radio station, right? For a couple of the.
We got plenty of space.
Yeah, because I'll tell you this. In the second book, the ending of the book ends at the Beaver County lot radio station. So to find out what happens in the second book at the ending, you have to read all of the third book to get to the end to find out what happened in the ending of the second book. So I kind of do a little trick there, kind of keep people waiting and like dangle that steak there and make them wonder, well, wait a minute, this second book ended here, but I got to go through all this other stuff. Okay, it'll keep my interest.
That's the point I make on my show a lot. All roads lead to Beaver County. And if you found a way to tie in King Arthur with Beaver County,
yeah, it works. You know, and in the first book, there was the Hive Queen. That's the name that he gives all his DAs nicknames. He gave the cleaning witch. It was this lady that she cleaned places for a living, but she was lazy and she never cleaned it right. Well, he knew her, and he sees her as this dead adrenaline, and she's still just as lazy, walking around, not doing what she's supposed to be doing. And then he gives like nicknames like Mr. Slippery. There's this, what happens is if a dead adrenaline can't hold that host in its body, it starts to bleed externally and it basically rots. And they're easier to kill. And he comes to find that out. So the Hive Queen's in the first two books, and she's in the third book, but then in the very ending of the second book, there's this new leader that shows up that actually is the true leader of the dead adrenaline infection. And everybody thought it was the Hive Queen. When they see this, and when you see what this person is, or thing, or entity, or creature, think about this, Scott. What if you were a guy that was the most evilest person on radio? And you were like, ha, everybody can listen to everything I say. No matter what happens, they're going to listen because I have the airways. I have the power. But you're this evil guy, and you're vicious. Think about, remember back Vlad the Impaler? Mm-hmm. The real vampire, the real Dracula, right? Well, imagine if somebody like that got infected by a dead adrenaline entity. You would think that would be a battle, right? You would think that those two evils would meet, and this evil would be like, no, I'm going to win. No, I'm going to win. But what if Vlad, for instance, just to use him as a reference, said, I want your evil. I
can
want to
work
be
with
more
this.
evil.
Okay.
Bring it to me.
Wow.
Let me have it. Take me. And that kind of happens. This leader shows up. You want to talk about a level of evilness. I don't think anybody's ever read that level of evilness in a book before.
Oh.
Yeah, it's creepy. It's not right.
Well, the question I teased with before the commercial, in many interviews, George Romero, the king of the zombie movies, always said, well, there's zombies, but there's a message here. Like Dawn of the Dead, the one film that Monroeville Mall was about consumerism run amok, whatever like that. He always
Right.
found. Do you have anything like that? Is there an allegory, a hidden message, or like a statement you're making, or something you want people to think about beyond just the characters themselves?
Right. So, you think about like government, you think about society, you think about, the crumbling of society. And everybody's just going along through their day. Some people are with blinders on, not focused on what's going on around them. They never turn the news on. They never get involved in the politic end of it, or they just go to work, come home, and do their thing. And then there's people that are involved in it. They're stirring it up. They're causing problems or helping the problem, whatever. So you have a crumbling of society. One day, this guy wakes up, and the world that he knew the day before changed overnight, even though that crumbling and deterioration was happening all along.
It wasn't overnight.
It wasn't overnight. Like, he noticed that, it was September, and the trees looked like it was January or February. He starts picking this up, and he talks about that in the book. He goes, oh my gosh, the world was rotting before we realized it was rotting. This infection was coming to us. Maybe we could have headed it off at the pass, but we chose not to. We missed the mark, They built the fracking plant. Maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't, Maybe people should have believed back in 1969 that maybe that really was a UFO, So all that stuff starts to play in his mind, and he starts to think, wow, all this stuff that's happening could have probably been avoided to a certain extent, or at least we would have had our thumb on it from the beginning, and it might not have been as severe. Because these entities, if you want to say that, or infection, they go after animals too. And, there's probably people that were hunting in the woods and they saw deer that looked infected, but they didn't realize that that was an infection that wasn't from maybe this world, and it was going to turn something into an animal that was not just a typical deer anymore. And the hosts, these entities, do not like to infect, how can I say, smaller mammals or smaller animals. They just don't. Because their bodies can't hold that entity too long, they die immediately. They're vicious, but they don't last long. So I would say, like, if you're talking about a message, not to get off track and go down the rabbit hole of dead adrenaline, if you think about it, our past, present, and future, the past can affect the present. The present can infect the future. But if you think about it, what we do in the future, if there's time travel involved, it can affect the past. And it's kind of like you look at with that big wide open lens and go, wow, stuff like that could happen. Like, we think about these books when you read them. If you get through all three of them, when you're done, you're going to sit down, Scott, if you read them all and go, that was terrible writing. No, you're going to sit down and go, that really was bad. No, you're going to say, man, maybe not on the level that's in the book, but something like this could happen. We talk about people walking around, perfect example of it. In the book, he talks about look for the signs. Think about this. You're ever at a stoplight and there's a car in front of you and the light turns green and that car in front of you doesn't move right away? In over the years, based on what I do for a living, I've noticed that people hesitate more than they ever did. Like, they wait longer than they ever. Why is that? Are they thinking about something in their mind? Are they on something they shouldn't be? Or whatever, they're zombies. A lot of them are like driving around in a zombie state of mind. They don't even know it. So you have to be aware of that. Like, in society, for real, we all should pay attention to what's going on around us because, look for the signs, because what will happen is it's just like anything else. You get a cold. You don't know that you have a cold until you get it. But if you think about it, you started feeling little symptoms maybe before you cared about it. Mm-hmm. And then, boom, next thing you know, you got full-blown flu. And you're like, man, I should have taken more this.
Zinc.
Zinc or something, you're right? So, there's a message there. I mean, just be aware of your surroundings and always know that, the past can affect the future and the future can affect the past. And if you go with that thought process, I think you're better off in life.
We're talking with local author Clint Kurtyka of the Dead Adrenaline series. Third book is out now. I'm going to talk about the writing sort of the process and how you get the book out there, because I'm sure there are people listening. Some, oh man, I've always wanted to write a book, or I wish I could do that. Start with the writing. Is this the old-fashioned? You had a laptop now. You had a computer.
Yeah,
you had a
so
typewriter.
My first 2 books were typed on an iPad.
Okay.
Yeah, I was an iPad guy. I recently got a laptop, so I started typing a little bit on the 3rd book on the laptop. But yeah, it's finger to keyboard, finger to typewriter if you want to go that way. You could write it out if you wanted to. But when it comes to what I consider, and this is going to probably offend people that maybe think they're writers, I consider them creators. I'm a big advocate of, if you're going to write a story and call yourself an author, you better be the guy that took the finger, put it on the keyboard, had the thought in your head, and typed it.
Yeah.
Not ghostwriters. Political people write, I wrote a book. Yeah, did you? I don't know. They always collaborate. There's a difference.
Yeah.
The people that are using AI to write books. Now, I'm not against AI. I'll explain that in a moment why I'm not. But I am against it to use to write a book. That's not an author. That's a creator of sorts. I mean, there's people that are selling these books, and they're typing them and selling them, and putting them out on Amazon and different things. Some of them say that it was AI. Some of them say that it wasn't. And what they do is go back and they edit it and make it seem more human. So I'm not. Yeah, if you're an author, you're actually typing it out. You're thinking it out. Yeah, you could have maybe a few good people that you bounce thoughts over and say, hey, do you think that connects? They're like help researchers to a certain extent and help you come up, make sure. I want a different perspective on this because I'm not getting locked into this. It's not making sense. What do you think?
Yeah, good editor is a good thing. They can maybe say, hey, can you tighten this paragraph up, or can you?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. But the story itself, the elements of the story, the typing. So the process to get a book, you type it, you write it. That's the first thing. Get it on paper. Get it where you need to be. As far as going, like back in the day, getting a book published was almost impossible. Unless, you hit the right, or you paid a ton of money. And there's still people out there that will publish it for money. Some of it is expensive, some of it isn't. But Amazon, if you type something of substance, and what I did with each one of these books, I formatted them all myself. I typed them all myself. I formatted my first book. It's all photographs and artistic work by me. I put the lettering on there. I did that. There's a certain, certain system that you have to do. So when you send this book cover to Amazon, it fits into their setup. So you could say, okay, it's the right, 6x9, that's the right setup. There's a certain number that you have to have. And what you do is you send them your manuscript. And it takes about 2 weeks. They look it over and they decide, hey, you can make this into a book. Oh, wow. They send you an email back saying, we'll accept it. You already have your book cover sent. You already have it formatted. When you send it, the manuscript pops up. There's thumbnails. You can see if everything's lining up. You have to tweak it a little bit. You do a few more things. You add a few more. Then you send it back. You get it the way you want. And once you get it the way you want, you hit publish. And then usually about a week or so, it's published. And it's for sale. Now,
well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and what's cool about it is there's not a whole lot of overhead. So this book here is on Amazon's website. If somebody orders it, they print it. And they send it.
Wow.
And I get a royalty from it. Amazon gets a royalty too, right?
It's only fair.
So they include the printing cost, I don't know. Printing cost for this book's probably about $4.82. Depending on how big your book is and how many images. I went with black and white for the images. The digital format, I did the digital. When you order a book digital, it's all in Keller because it doesn't cost anything there's no printing cost. So, and then as an author, I can order author's copies off the website, off Amazon at a cheap price. Usually it's around what the printing cost would be, plus tax or whatever,
Now, do you yourself have your own website as well, or a Facebook page, or how
I have a Facebook page set up and stuff, I'm always I'm doing self-promotion. I do some things. I think when you're starting out writing, you got to try find ways to save money. You know what I mean? Like I did a little bit of editing in these books. My second book, I had like a third clean edit. And then the second book, I did some editing and my one buddy helped edit it a little bit. But my first book, incidentally, the editing is very limited because it's like a journal. And we said, we're going to take a chance here and I'm going to edit. It makes sense when you read it and stuff, but I'm not going to go crazy on it. And it's going to be explained in the first chapter why the man called Clint, because basically this book, there's a place called the Hall of Knowledge in 2086. They find this journal that was in terminal list realm, which is actually Beaver County in Pennsylvania. It became a terminal realm, and this was like 30 years later. And they started having all these events happening again. So it was happening again. The infection was happening in 2086, and they were trying to find answers.
Oh.
So they find this journal, and there's actually this lady that reads the book, and the book transitions from her narrating the book to the hero being the narrator. And then it all unfolds. So, yeah, but as far as publishing, yeah, it's hard, but it's easy in a way. But you got to have the story. You know, you got to have something that's of substance. Yeah, and it's definitely a great platform. Like this book is available on Amazon. Like I said, there's a thing called expanded distribution where if you check that block on KDP is the publishing thing through Amazon. If you check that, then the book will go out on different platforms like Barnes & Noble and places like that.
Well, if you want to track down these books, we are streaming us on Facebook. You'll see how to spell Clint's name. The last name is Kurtyka, Clint Kurtyka. It's the Dead Adrenaline series, part 3. Time is flying. We got like 2 minutes. Anything you want to say? Give people the recap. Why this is something they want to sit down with, immerse themselves in. And
so if you want to take your mind off what's going on around in the world, this is a high adrenaline, high octane fury ride. Like if you're a fan of death and destruction, but yet humor and in real life situations that are translated in fiction, you're going to love this series. Dead Adrenaline 1, 2, and 3. Get them. They're good books. You'll read them and you'll be like, this is probably one of the better books I've read this year.
I think we all can use a little escapism these days.
Absolutely.
Well, congratulations on getting another book, getting it published, Clint. Enjoyed having you in here. You have to have you back.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Any book signings or anything coming up publicly? You're thinking about
Read
them.
Between the Wines and stuff like that.
That's the New Brighton
down in New
Public
Brighton,
Library.
maybe the Markets Place. I'm going to probably do a couple of that, and there might be a couple other places I'm going to look into. It's early in the year, so I'm going to try to set some stuff up as far as that goes. I do have a couple other books out there. There's one, it's a children's book, a different genre altogether, The Magic Caller. That's going to be a cool book. Adults and children will love to read it. It's real entertaining. It's humorous. Really good book. I'm going into some of the horror still. I'm going to go back with a book called The Mind Twist, and then the Canopy of Thantos. So
Okay.
if you like scary, you're going to love those.
All right, we'll have you back to talk about those as well.
Okay.
All right, Clint. Good luck. Clint Kurtyka, Dead Adrenaline 3, out now where books are sold, or go to Amazon.com.